Hey Kyle, good questions about the live electrical wires. Let me show you what that actually would look like. So in a wall, in order to make it to code, the electrical wires are set into the middle of the stud. So here's a 2x4 stud. So the hole is drilled where that X is. So this puts them back about 1.5 inches from where the drywall is hung. So that means as long as you don't use too long of a screw, you won't be contacting any electrical wires. Okay, so here I am in the kitchen, and I just wanted to show you, I guess, a way to approach actually mounting the cabinets themselves. And I'm sure the IKEA manual kind of has a preferred method of actually securing it to the wall, but there's kind of two different approaches, one being good and one being bad. So when we hung these ones here, you can see that obviously the X here marking where the stud is, here and here and here for these cabinets. And we put the screw in through on the top of the cabinet, because when you're on the floor looking up, you shouldn't see any screws. So the previous homeowners, they just drilled right through the back of the cabinet, and so this ends up looking very ugly. And why would you have exposed screw heads like that? And so you can see, again, looking here, they just installed the screws right at eye level. It was not a good thing. So when you're mounting that, obviously try to put the screws up high on the top, and I mean, they probably come with little brackets or whatever. It's not really necessary. You can just see that we just drilled a hole and put the screw in right into the stud. And then the last point that I wanted to make was about the stud finder. So we don't actually own a stud finder. I've not had actually any good luck with stud finders. They haven't worked very well for me, and it's hard to know, like, to translate what it marks as a stud like into the real world. So the way that we do it is that when we were hanging I'm in the garage right now, we were hanging a fire extinguisher, obviously it should go into a stud. And so this sounds kind of crazy, just kind of guessed to where the stud should be. And then we just started drilling holes. And then some of the holes are gonna feel like they're going into something solid, like a stud. And then eventually you get out and then you realize, okay, it's just going into a hollow nothing. So then you can mark, where it starts to feel hollow, and then that becomes your stud. And so we do that because like this, by the door jamb, it's very complicated because you have the studs that are going to be used for hanging the door, and then there's going to be nothing, and then just 4 inches away is going to be another stud, and then it goes back to a stud 16 inches, and then 16 inches beyond that, and so on and so forth. So because you're going to install the cabinet and it's going to hide this thing, it seems kind of crazy to drill 7 holes when you can just drill a couple holes, but a hole is a hole. There's going to be like a screw there anyways, and when you put the cabinet up, it's going to hide that bump, be up behind that. You'll never see it. So that's the cabinet maker's way of stud finding. And then finally, where do you start by trying to figure out where a stud should be? So one of the easier methods is that here, looking at this outlet, the junction box is going to be sitting against the stud. So there's going to be a stud either here or over here, depending on whether the electrician, I guess, was right or left-handed, preferred right or left-handed stuff. So what you can do is you can start from here, determine which side the stud is on, and then the next stud should be approximately 16 inches away or 24 inches, depending on how they did the construction. So once you determine where the first stud is, you can go measure over 16 inches. Should be a stud there, but I would check for sure, because depending on the day, sometimes the framer might have done 14 inches for one stud and then 17 inches for the next stud. So it's not always a perfect 16 inches. It should average out to that. But yeah, sometimes it's a hit or miss type of installation.